Hi, and welcome to Transformation Now, which is a division of SoaringHigher.rocks. Hi, I'm Rita Rocker Kraft, a speaker, published author, trainer, coach with SoaringHigher.rocks. And my goal is to really work with people on self-esteem, self-image, all of their communication skills, professional image, business etiquette, and career development. And so my heart is really to work with you in those areas, and I'm always available to talk. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is really from my program, Marketing Yourself for Success, and it's on tips for a dynamic presentation and interview. But what I decided to do when I looked at this was think, you know what, we could use a lot of these in areas other than interviewing and presentation skills. We can use a lot of these things that I'm talking to you today about in every aspect of our life with everyone we meet. So even though this is geared a little bit towards jobs, it's also just geared for life in general and what we do. So there's a lot of tips for preparing for an interview that we can all just use, you know, every day as we're communicating with people in this great big world that we have. It's a global economy now. Okay, so I mean, we can talk to people. I've had people I worked with in England and Sweden, and it's been fascinating to be able to talk. I was on an interview with a lady from Rome one time, and so we really want to continue to build our relationships, everything that we do, and it's possible now with the internet. And so, you know, last time I was, on my last program, I talked a lot about self-esteem and self-image and how important that is. But again, self-esteem has everything to do with the type of relationships we have, the type of jobs we get, everything that we do in the world. Basically, kind of bottom line is our self-esteem and self-image. It's how we see ourselves, whether correct or not, and how we believe other people see us. You know, I know there are people a lot of times, and it's happened with me too, you know, where they see someone who's very capable, very interesting, but we see ourselves as still that little failure maybe that we heard that we were all of our lives growing up. And so again, those perceptions mean everything in our future. And so again, like I mentioned last time, we often limit ourselves by how we think, how we see ourselves, and how we interpret ourselves in the world around us. And so we want to always interpret ourselves too as equal. I used to think people with more money, better looking, all this were better than me, a nicer house, nicer car. Some of you feel that way. I still actually, you know, think about those things sometimes, but that is not true. What we have is not a determining factor on who we are as a person. And so even if you're going out to look for a new job now, always remember that. It's you, who you are, and not how you grew up, how much money you have, or anything like that. Your value is not in that as far as who you are. And so we don't want to follow any of the same formats that maybe we've followed in the past that have kept us down. We want to soar, and you have that ability to do that. So we always want to discard, get rid of those limiting thoughts. You know, last program I had, I talked about brain jitsu. You know, like I said, when we think about jujitsu, you're going to flip people, you're going to take control, and the same thing is with the brain. We allow certain thoughts to either remain. I mean, they're going to come in. Negative thoughts come in all the time and try to bombard our minds, but we either allow ourselves to mull those over and think about those, or we go, nope, and say, just flip it and say just the opposite. If, oh, you're just homely. No, I'm a beautiful child of God. No, you're stupid. No, I'm not. You know, God gave me a brain. I'm educated. I'm going to go forward and educate myself more. So always flip those thoughts when they come into your brain. So forecasting your future. Again, there are so many things we can do to forecast our future from maybe where we are now. Job market is opening up again. Things are changing in our country and our world. And so we get on that bandwagon and we go forward. You know, a lot of times what you want to do too is evaluate your personal and your professional life. And I know a lot of times companies will say, you know, this employee needs to leave all of their personal stuff at home when they arrive at work. Well, yes and no. Sometimes companies are so interested in the bottom line, making the money, making the big business deals, that they forget who's doing that? Human beings. We're all human beings. And so we always need to take into consideration what's going on in someone's life. And so a lot of times it's a matter of being kind, it's considerate, and working with people in that respect. So think about your personal life. How does that affect your job? How does your job affect your personal life? Are you great when you're home, and then by the time you get home from a job, it's been so awful? So think about those things and how to keep those separated to a point, but then also we know that as human beings, those two are tied together quite a bit. That's why I work with people on self-esteem, self-image, and their career development, because it's really all tied together in a package. So what's more important to you? Recognition, power, large income? Do you need flexibility? Do you need other things that will help in your life? Benefits, location? I know when I did programs with the generations, you have more what we call the baby boomers, older people now. And the greatest generation is very high up there now, and a lot of them are gone, fought in World War II, et cetera. But it was really interesting when I did this program with the company where I was working in human resources, and we had boomers, Generation X, and millennials. And so as they're writing, they have the big tablets, up on the wall, and some pens. And so I would ask them questions. And it was very interesting when you went to the baby boomers, long sentences. They would write out quite lengthy sentences because that's what they were used to, writing out reports, writing out all their ideas. Okay, then you go to the Generation X and they'd have a couple paragraphs, or they'd have bullet points, things like that. And then when you go to the one that the millennials were writing, it was like texting, like, just quick thoughts. Just quick thoughts, that's all it was. And I thought, that's so good to know, because then we know when we're talking to another generation, we all need to learn from each other. One generation should not be looking down at the other generation. We learn from each other. The older learn from the younger learn from the older. And so always think about that. How do you communicate and make sure that person understands they're hearing you, and you can build up a really good conversation as we take other people's backgrounds, their knowledge, and how old they are even into consideration. So evaluate your personal and your professional life, what's going on, what's most important to you. And a lot of times, the best way to really think about things is just sit down in a quiet place with a notebook, a pen and paper, and actually write. We learn more when we write. We think more about assessing things in our lives when we're just sitting quietly and writing with a pen, not on the computer, no distractions. Just sit there and think about what's important to you, what your qualifications are, who's important to you, and then what obstacles are in the way of keeping you from that. And sometimes, people are caregivers. They have to care for a family member or a loved one and try to work. And the sandwich generation, they call it, are the ones where maybe they're taking care of mom and dad now because of the age, but they're also taking care of kids. So they feel like they're sandwiched right in the middle. And so think about what you need. I've told people if they had to do caregiving, try to barter with someone else who maybe needs cooking skills, maybe they need bookkeeping help, whatever the case may be, and then let that person come and care for your loved one while you get out, and then you do something in return for them in a kind of a bartering situation. And a lot of times that will help too as you're assessing life and how you can move forward from where you are. Compare and list the most important things, and then you can go from there. Sometimes we just want to go over here, but we don't know how to get there. So sitting down, making lists of what you already have, what the obstacles are, who you can get to help. And we all have to ask for help. Nobody should think, oh, I've got to do this all by myself. No, we all need to help, and we need to ask for help, and we need to offer help to others. That's how this world grows and gets bigger. There's something called golden handcuffs. And it's a little bit of an older term, but that probably was more in the greatest generation of the boomers. But somebody works for a company for so long, they hate their job, but they don't know how to get out of their job because they feel like they're handcuffed by the money they're making, the fact that maybe they're older now, and so it's hard for them to get a job where the hiring people are more in the younger years of their life. And so think of those golden handcuffs. Well, that's what I've always done. That doesn't mean you have to continue to do that. I talked about famous failures last time, and all these people that are 70s, 80s, even 100, and the lady that jumped out of the plane at 101. So we should never let age or anything like that determine where we go from here. Our experience is valuable. There's so much education in just learning about somebody's experiences, what happened, what the effects are of what happened in their lives. And it helps us to avoid mistakes because we see how others made mistakes and we don't want to go there anymore. So a lot of times people will feel trapped. And one thing I want to encourage you to do, especially if you're an introvert and you're shy, is to get out there. If you're really shy, go online, find some organizations. There's some for everything you'd ever want to do, and get involved. You can start on Zoom. People talk on Zoom if they're afraid to get out into the public. But start getting involved with people and networking, making acquaintances. I'm sure have some gifts, some knowledge that you can share in blogs and online to get you started, to get you out there networking with other people. And so add value by the things you have experienced, the knowledge that you have. And again, we always want to keep this for the greater good of our community, for our world. And so think about that. When we're searching, a lot of times we maybe want to get out and do something else, but think, well, gosh, I don't have any experience in that. And so, I think of like a barista who basically works at a, coffee. What could a barista do if it really wanted to get out and do a different line of work? Maybe their back hurt and they didn't want to stand so much. So they wanted, it's like, well, what do I do now? This is all I've done. I've served coffee to people. Well, a lot of times you definitely have customer service. There's a myriad of things that you can add regarding customer service and your verbal communication skills, your body language. Think of all the things that you would do as a barista. And maybe you're doing ordering of products, you're handling customer complaints, working with crowds, problem resolution quite often. So think of those skills that you literally do as a barista, because there are a lot of them there. Again, I mentioned a custodian last time and how you can impact somebody's life by being a custodian and how you treat people and what you show them, what the good things are to do, and taking care of things. I worked with a lady a few years ago, and she was working in veterinary vitamin. She was a tester. She was in scientist, and she was working with animal products. Beautiful girl. And very shy. And her dad, who's a doctor that I had gone to, had asked me to work with her. He said, she's so tired of being literally shut up in a room with microscopes and testing equipment, testing veterinary products all day. That's basically what she was doing. I was like, I'm going to go nuts. So I worked with her, and what we did was we recreated what she could do using her scientific knowledge, her veterinary product and vitamins, all of that knowledge, into actually being a representative for a veterinary company. So she'd still stay in her line of work where her education was, but she'd get out of that little room. And she would actually be able to get out and meet people and socialize. And she just beamed, and she thought it was so exciting. And she had everything she needed to do it. Very professional appearance, excellent communicator. But when I checked, I think it was a couple of years later, I asked her, I ran into her father, and I said, so, how's she doing? Yeah, she's still at the lab. She didn't like it, but she was too afraid to take that leap, even though she was qualified. And so many times that's what can happen to us, is that we're still afraid to get out there. We don't know what to do. And so a lot of times it's taking a leap, and I've heard that quote so many times, do it afraid. Think about that. A lot of times we do have to do something afraid, but boy, when we get, it's like they say, if you get injured, you fell off your bicycle and you got injured, what do? You immediately get back on your bike and start riding again. And so that's what we do. We get back up. We don't stay down. We don't, we fall down, but we get up, we dance in the rain, because that's what we need to do. So always don't let what you do for a job impact your self-esteem. So many times people think, oh, I'm a doctor, or I'm an attorney, or I'm this, or I'm that, and so look at me. But that's not the point. You are not your job. You are not the amount of money you make. You are not the home you live in or the car you drive. So think about who you are as a person, not what you have right now, because there's a huge difference in there. And write your job description of all the things you are capable of doing. You know, you may mediate kids fights or adult fights. You know, you may be helping other people with their checkbooks and their bank balances because they have no clue how to do it. The coaching, you know, so many things that you can do that you can put into a job, into a resume, and things that you do on a personal basis. Maybe you help a church doing fundraisers every year, but by golly, you've got organizational ability that's amazing. You have communication skills, and you can write all these letters and organize all these people and get all these events going. Wow, that's pretty powerful. So maybe you want a job like that and be an event planner, but it's like, oh gosh, I've never done that in my life. No, you have all those skills because you've done that. So always take what you've done in your personal world, if it's appropriate to the job you want, and go for it. And just really elaborate on those things, because companies want to know that too. They really do. So examine your history and compile a real comprehensive list of as many achievements, both personally and professionally, that you have done. Again, that's so important. You know, you may have valuable, saleable skills. You know, maybe family said, oh, you know, you should be in an office. That's why I was, you know, we all grew up, my sisters and I, you'd be secretaries, you sit in an office. Well, after so many years, I hated it because that just wasn't me. And so, you know, I tell people, hey, maybe that's what you're expected of, to do a particular job because that's what your parents think you should do. However, you were an awesome salesperson at a lemonade stand you had when you were 5 years old. Okay, something was in there then. You know, talking with people, bringing them in, communicating, your enthusiasm for being able to sell lemonade. I remember when I was at a doctor's office one time, and this well-dressed, very professional couple came in, and they went up to the front desk of the doctor's office, and everybody's going, you know, they're all excited about this couple. And I thought, wow, they must have a really cool new piece of medical equipment or something really powerful. Look how everybody's, what did they have? Chocolates. They had chocolates. And apparently these were just the most dynamite thing in the world because everybody was so excited. I thought, gee, if you can show that much enthusiasm and excitement wearing your suits and doing all this over chocolates, wow. I mean, people could pretty much sell most anything they wanted. And so always think about those things and create a package of skills. That's how you get a better job. That's how you get better relationships, is think about the package of skills that you have inside of you, not just what you've been doing at your job, but all these other things outside of it. Where's your heart? If something's in your heart, you want to be a firefighter all your life, you want to be a nurse or doctor all your life. I remember hearing about, I think it was an attorney, very successful. He hated it. He ended up, what he really wanted to do was leather work and artsy things with his hands. And so he quit his big, well-paying job. He went to a cool little mountain town, and that's what he did. He talked with the people, and he made his products. He made his things out of that. And so just because somebody expected us to be a certain way, do a certain thing, what's in your heart, not theirs. You know, sometimes parents, like boys especially, probably more than girls, oh, you need to be a baseball player, a football player, whatever. And it's like, you know, the parents are trying to live vicariously through their children, and they don't want to do sports. They want to do art. They want to do technical things. And so always allow your family, your kids, to go where their heart is. And you, as the person, never allow other people to determine what your worth is, what you do in your life, because it could be totally different. Go where your heart is, because that's where you've been gifted. And so examine all your skills and think about what you can do. I mean, maybe you worked at a daycare for years and you think, oh gosh, you know, I love it, but I'm just physically, I'm not able to handle it anymore. I went out of daycare. What am I going to do? Well, you probably are a mediator of children's fights. You may even order the products and the little goodies that they have. You have to do a lot with customer service and dealing with parents and kids. If you stop really thinking about the quality of the skills that you have doing that, I mean, you can come up with a whole new resume. I remember working with a gentleman when I was in human resources, and he had just gotten out of the Air Force. That's all he'd known. And unfortunately, a lot of people look at military as, well, they're so different, they're from a different world, I don't want to hire them. I've heard people say that when I was in human resources. And so I said, okay, what do we do here? And so I dug in and found out everything he did. I said, okay, we're going to completely change all the language in this resume. We're not going to have all these technical military terms because nobody else will understand them. So we took everything he did, what he did, but we put it in more regular, everyday language, and made a really impressive resume for him so that he could go out and really, trying to remember what the exact gifts he had were, but it was amazing. And I know he did get hired not too long after that because he had switched to a different way to communicate all of the awesome things that he had done. And so people can do that all the time. I talked to a farmer who was getting out of farming because of weather. He couldn't handle it anymore. Well, what do I do? And so I said, well, you're ordering your inventory, all your financial statements. And we took what he did as a farmer and made a great resume for him so that he was actually able to go work for a supplier of farming equipment, I think it was, because he had the knowledge, he just hadn't done it because he worked on the farm. So always think about all the things that you know how to do that you can transfer into a successful job. And write who you are in the workplace, who you are. You're the motivated, smart person, okay? You're not the one that sits in the corner. And so, like, if someone just needs to get out and be active all the time and they're sitting behind a computer and doing, accounts payable, that's not going to be successful. So think about transferring all those skills into something you may be able to go out and sell software that pertains to accounts payable or accounts receivable. So think of things like that. And examine your history and think about that. Some people are influencers, and so they have a knack for influencing people, leadership, public speaking, marketing, motivating. Is that you? But you've never done it before, but that's where your heart is. Follow your heart. Organizing, monitoring, tracking, managing, non-technical project management. I did a lot of non-technical project management when I was working for a Chamber of Commerce and absolutely loved it. Totally different from when I was sitting behind a computer doing monotonous things all day, because that's where my heart was. Some people love to be at that desk doing that. They're introverted and they're happy there, and that's great. Helps. You derive enjoyment from teaching, encouraging, nurturing, counseling, mentoring. Oh my, there's a whole lot of places that you could be doing that, even if you've not done those things before. Again, if you're used to it in the personal world, take it into your professional world. Analytical, math, analyzing data, keeping up with scientific facts. I couldn't do that, but then a lot of people do, and they love it, and that's where their brains are, their hearts, their minds. A producer likes to see the fruit of his labor, like the attorney I said that ended up in the mountains making leather goods, because that's where he was. He wanted to produce and see, artisan, see what he could do with his own hands rather than so much the brain. Adventuresome, competitive, law enforcement, firefighting, military, athletics, a lot of athletics. Some people love athletics, some don't. That should be their own choice as to whether they go forward or not with that. And then take people along with them that enjoy it too. Partner up with those who will be partners to you, for you, with you. And then take stock of whether it's computer literacy, what you do with yourself. And always think, a lot of times in interviews too, there's situational interviews now, but you can carry this over into other areas of your life besides job search. And what they will do is they will say, well, give me a time when there was a real problem at work and you had to solve it. So a lot of times now, people don't want to know what you did, job, task. They want to know, how did you handle this situation? What did you do in this other situation? So always make sure that you have thoughts, ideas, stories, true stories about what you did to handle all these different situations that can happen. If you do a customer service, they're going to want to know how you've handled a bad situation, what you did, with people, what you did maybe with counting money. There are so many things. So think about all of those things and prepare for that So it's behavioral interviewing goes way beyond a job though. People are always checking out our behaviors, what we're doing, how we're acting, how we look. You know, again, like I mentioned before, 55% of our communication skills is nonverbal. Okay, that's over half. How we sit, stand, walk, how we sit at a table, what we're doing with our eyes, all kinds of things. Everything we're doing, and we nervous habits, are we fidgeting. The 55% is nonverbal. So people watch you and they make a judgment about you within that first 7 seconds that they meet you. And they think things about your education, your self-esteem, your future success, how truthful you probably are. They're making all these judgments immediately in the first 7 seconds. In the first 20 seconds, they're making of hearing you, they're making a judgment about whether they want to hear you longer, they want to continue talking to you, or they want to turn around and go talk to someone else. So think about those judgments, those situations, and how people are causing judgments immediately. And we do it too. We think, oh, I wouldn't want that hairdresser because they look like they haven't combed their hair in a week. You know, so think about all those things. People judge us wherever we go, all the time. And remember to build up that confidence in who you are and what you do, and you stand tall and you put your chin up. You're never arrogant, but know that you're valuable and you're very worthy, always, always, always. So think about those things. Come up with some good stories that you can share with other people, whether it's in a job interview or when you're making new friends, networking. Some true stories. You know, maybe you were a captain of the Little League baseball all the way up through college, and all the skills and the abilities and the talents that you had in order to do that, and how they would apply in being a team leader at a company or being some other position that would help you to grow and to get involved with the kind of people you want, the very most positive people. So always think about that. You know, I remember when I taught at a modeling school, I learned so much that helped me later on work to coordinate international conferences and trade shows. And so, although that other happened many years ago, all those skills and abilities I was able to use in getting a position where I was actually working with big conferences and State of the Union for Nebraska, that kind of thing. But that really matters. So always think about all the skills and abilities you have, and we'll talk about that more later. And I just want to encourage you again, you're powerful, you're an awesome child of God, and I'll always be here for you too. So we'll see you again. We'll talk about some more of these things next time. Have a blessed week. Thank you.